Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Historical Commission meeting. We are doing a remote meeting this evening by Zoom. It is Tuesday, December 8th, and it is 6:17 right now. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made whether perceived or unperceived by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. Can I please get a roll call?
Rick Mancini, Commissioner. I'm speaking remotely, off-site.
Addie Rigo, attending remotely.
Ben Amaral, attending remotely.
Kristen Cantera Oliveira, attending remotely. We have to unmute one of our members.
You are unmuted.
Joyce Rodericks, attending remotely.
And we have our clerk.
Carrie Ash, attending remotely.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Our first agenda item is citizen input. Do we have any citizen input? I had nobody send anything by email. I'm not sure if anybody out there wants to speak.
Kristen, I emailed you a few days ago regarding the Connell School.
Okay. Yep, if you want to say something about that, you can.
Sure. So it was, I learned
Just
on
say your
Facebook.
name and address
I'm sorry.
for the record.
Yes, my name is Jason Bouchard Naraki, 45 Bigelow Street. So I learned over the weekend on social media that the Connell School was recently sold to the church that is adjacent to it. I know that the church has been using the property for parking, but in the posting online, I think it was through Fall River Development News, no indication is made as to what the future use of the property will be. So I'm curious if there's any concern or if there's the ability for the Historical Commission to reach out to the new owners to find out what their intention is for the property. Yeah.
Okay. Does anyone have any thoughts on that? Does anybody want to reach out and just see? I don't know anything. I have not heard anything. I just saw the link that Jason sent me, and it didn't say anything at all about what their plan is. So I'm not sure if any of our members would like to reach out and see what's going on.
I mean, it would be nice to have them in to discuss what their plans are. I'm assuming there's no deed restriction on it, like previous properties that the city has sold. I assume. I didn't do any research on it. I did see the same article, but I haven't jumped in there and done any additional research on it.
Okay, well, it's something that we can definitely put on the agenda for the next meeting, and see if in the meantime, if somebody wants to reach out and find out a little more information. I know I am going to be busy writing letters probably for the next few weeks. So anybody else that wants to, feel free to.
Well, I'll fit it in somewhere if you like. And I've got probably more flexibility. I can check and see what I can find out and report at the next meeting.
Okay, that would be great. I'll just put it on the next agenda to discuss. Okay, thank you, Jason.
Welcome.
Anything else for citizen input? Okay, moving on. So general correspondence, our first item that we have on our agenda is Kenneth Raposa from Little Theater. He had sent us some information about things that he wants to discuss for the marquee and the building exterior. So I am going to invite Ken to speak, and we'll go from there.
Hi, everybody.
Can you just state your name and
Kenneth Raposa,
affiliation?
Wilson Road, on behalf of the Little Theater Fall River. As Kirsten knows, I just recently finished a lodge project in the fire barn basement. We have it all cleaned up. There's no asbestos, no mold. It's dry. It's probably the only cleanest place in the whole fire barn. We have a brand new HVAC system. Thank you to the CPA for all their funding, because without it, we could not have gotten the job done. So with that said, the little bit of background I just want to give you is that on November 2nd, I sent a letter to the CPA because Little Theater is a business operating in a historic structure. So therefore, we intend to continue to publicize on the exterior of our building as long as we can meet certain requirements and make everybody happy. So what's happened is that letter was sent in hopes when the 30-year deed restriction comes out that they incorporate this all together in the deed restriction. Because that deed restriction, I haven't seen it yet. I don't think I'm going to see it because I think it's going directly to the board. So anyway, with all of that said, on the exterior of the building, is everybody familiar with the fire barn? On the corner of Highland and Prospect Street, you always see that little marquee that we have down there on the ground. It is not attached to the building. It's freestanding on 2 metal poles. That needs replacement. That's something we've discussed over and over. We need to do that. The other thing that we do for publicity is we have this large banner that is put up and attached to the hose tower of the building. So I believe the deed restriction and the historical commission is going to probably restrict anything attached to the building. I don't really know, but what I've done is I've done some research and I did a little sketch. I don't know if you can see this. Let's see if we can get it. Yeah, it's not really going to show you. I was putzing around trying to make a little drawing, and the top of that LTFR is what the original tower would look like. That was all done by metal art. So it would have been something like a black anodized metal with the LED dual screen on each side. So with that, I went to this company, I believe they're down in Florida. And they did a professional double-sided LED screen. So what I'm thinking is on the exterior of the building is where the old marquee is now, to put this new marquee, then we would no longer need to attach a banner to the building, because with electronic LED monitors, you can change it constantly. And this is more of like what it would look like. It's double-sided columns of brick, which the brick would be used from the brick that was saved in the basement of the building. It's original to the structure. And then the marquee would be illuminated and it would be dual-sided. So if you're coming up or down Highland Avenue, you get to see whatever's on the screen. And it's not a static screen, it will continuously change. And of course, being in that neighborhood, you would add light to that otherwise dark corner of Prospect and Highland, which is, you know, there's a very infamous problem there as far as accidents. You would add additional light. And I'm also working with Jay Chatterton from the Fire Museum, because if you know the Fire Museum, they have that red light with the firebox. I'd like to do the same thing on the fire barn. It's not a live alarm box. It's just a casing and a red light, because I think that would look nice on the fire barn. And then maybe some period lighting around the building that looks good. Maybe it's like a pole that comes out, goes up and comes down. It just has like a V-shaped cone over the light, because that area is just very dark. So that's kind of my vision. I'm not allowed to make any promises of what's going to happen. But what I'm trying to do is I'm on a fact-finding mission, because what I need to know is from the Historical Commission, what's your thought? When I tell you this, what do you think? What do you see? What do you envision? So I'll open that right up. I'm just curious what anybody has to say.
I'll go first. I like the idea of the light. I love the idea of the red box, the alarm box, and the period lighting. As far as the LED sign on the corner, I'm not really sure. I think as far as there might be certain restrictions as to the brightness of how something can be, and you would probably have to get permission to put it, because I know that a lot of neighborhoods don't like bright LED signs in the neighborhood because it really is bright and it can be distracting to traffic. I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah, just let me respond to that. I did ask them about the illumination capacity of the signs, and that can be adjusted. So I'm thinking that this sign, in place of the current marquee, we could adjust and it would shut off at, say, 11 o'clock at night. It would not stay lit all night. Because the only house, well, let's put it this way. If you're on the south side looking up, Sandy Dennis lives to the left. So you're good, that light would just hit that park in the middle. And coming down from Charlotte Memorial ER, the only house that's going to get lit is the two houses on the other side of Highland Avenue, one which is unoccupied, the other one is occupied only during the day by Charlotte Memorial Cancer Center, whatever that, right on the corner there. And they have it's not an LED sign, but they do have an electric illuminated sign on the corner. So that can always be worked out, because even on the proposal I got from the sign company, it says here, all signs subject to zoning and code, city codes. So that's what I'm curious about. Or if somebody has a better idea of what could be done, I'm open to any suggestions.
I mean, I love the idea of the brick columns, using the brick that's in the basement. I think that's great. The sign, it's not attached to the building, so I can't see. I mean, it's not violating any kind of Secretary of Interior standards rules because it's not attached.
I like the idea that, I do agree that, when you are doing business in a historical district, you are still, I know you understand the limitations, but you are correct. Like you want to have that flexibility to be able to, adequately promote your shows and attract people, and also have a presence on that corner. I pass that corner at least 3 times every day. I also love your idea about the firebox. I think that would be a really great nod to the whole, the history of the fire barn, and also the idea about the lighting. If, and I know that's just an idea, but it would be so wonderful, because I do think that that's such a unique corner, and to have that would almost kind of be like transporting people. It's at the entrance of the historic Highlands, and I think it's one of the first impressions that you get of the historic Highlands. So it would be a wonderful entree point. So I think this is lovely.
I agree, Patty, because the way I look at it here is, if I've got people coming in to see a show, I'd rather have them come into an area that looks lit and presentable and welcoming. Right now, you don't get that. It's dark. So that, I think that would be a great enhancement. But there's only one house. It's on the corner of Highland and Prospect. If you're coming from Charlton, coming down towards the fire barn, on the southeast corner, there's a gray house. We have trouble with that. I don't know if it's owned or rented, but we always have trouble with those neighbors because they don't like the idea of extra cars being parked. That's why we paved over the parking lot. So if anybody's going to put up a stake over an LED sign, that would be the one. But other than that, no one else is really going to get affected by this.
Okay. Well, if 2 things. One, the lighting in that area, there is a street light right on the corner. The problem is that particular street light has not been upgraded. When the city put the LED lighting in, they put a wattage that was substandard, and they've been upgrading the fixtures to a better lighting level so that we're acquiring more lumens at this point. That particular light is still at the lower spectrum. So Chris or John Perry, I'm sure can work on that, and we can get that taken care of to light the corner a bit. And I agree with Patty. I go by there quite often. And that present marquee, if you're in an automobile, it's almost impossible to look up high. If you're coming coming west on Prospect heading east, it's almost impossible to look up Highland Avenue unless you stick your nose out. That's the nose of the automobile. So the marquee, in my opinion, is the way it's situated, is not a good for safety. It's not good. Even as a signage unit for the fire barn, I don't think it fits in my opinion, again, properly. As far as the LED sign up in the tower, I don't know if would go well. It doesn't bode with me as you're presenting. Probably if we were to look at some rendering and see what it looks like in a full rendering fashion, maybe it would satisfy. But to have an LED and constantly be changing up in that tower, in that neighborhood when you're driving up, I don't know if it fits in with the historic nature of that particular section of town. Lighting, yes, I do agree that property is dark, and probably in my opinion, some subdued lighting, ground lighting, focused up, putting a very soft curtain of light on the building and the surrounding areas. And again, it would be just a soft light, very low LED lumen value, just enough to highlight the structure and highlight the area. I think that's a good investment, and I like that thought process. The marquee, where it's situated, I'm in total disagreement with that, of any kind of marquee going in there. That's just a total safety hazard. You said you go by there, Patty, a number of times, and if you're coming from the west on Prospect going east, you'll find that it's almost impossible to really see what's coming down Highland Avenue. You know, particularly with that roadway being off at an angle, you have to really focus, you know. But anyway, that's where I'm coming from.
Rick, I agree with the length of the current marquee that's sitting there is like 6.5 feet wide. This marquee, believe it or not, is only about 4.5 feet wide.
Mhm.
That's shrinking up closer to the building, and plus we could move that tower closer to the building, probably by another 1/2 foot. So that would help to expand the person's view of the oncoming traffic coming down Highland Avenue. The other thing I would like to just emphasize and correct for you is I'm not talking about putting an LED marquee on the tower or in the tower. That's just, we have that banner, it's a canvas banner that's put up once a year that we advertise all our shows. But if we have a marquee, we don't need a banner. Nothing gets attached to the building. That's why I'm just trying to weigh everything. Because why have a banner and a marquee? You don't need two.
Mhm. And that present sign is 4.5 feet wide, and what's the height?
6.5 feet.
Marquee?
Oh, it's almost, stand there, it's right over here. I'd say about 5 feet tall.
5 foot tall. Now, is that marquee 4.5 feet, including the brick columns, or is that minus the brick columns?
The sign itself is 3 feet 5 inches. And then you'd have to add probably another 6 inches of a column brick on each side. So you're adding, altogether, it's about 4.5, maybe 5 feet wide. And moving it closer to the building gives you either much more visibility on the exterior in the end.
Yeah. Is there anyone that you have able to produce a rendering showing that sign and its size against the building, or
This is actually the company.
proper position?
This is the company I'm working with.
Yeah.
We don't have to do brick siding. We could put it on poles Because the other option is to put it on poles and put it up high enough, because my question that when I first got this, I said, how strong is the glass on these? Because let's face facts, people are gonna come down there if they see this and they don't want to, kids are just smack it with a hammer. So I would prefer myself to put it elevated at about 6 feet off the ground to keep people from hitting it. What do you think of that one?
Yeah. Well, I have to go down there, take a look and give it some thought.
I'm just trying to get some guidance. Like I told Chris, I said, my purpose behind it is just to get a conversation going,
Mhm.
because I know when the deed restriction comes out, that's up to the board of directors of the Little Theater to handle it. Whatever their feelings are about the deed restriction, I don't care. I signed, I got the money, I did the project, and I'm just waiting to tie up a few loose ends on the financial part, and then I'm done. So I'm doing some extra homework for them here. I know after COVID, and hopefully it'll be sooner or later, we will have to address these issues. And if COVID unfortunately lasts into 2022, this might not even be an issue because the Little Theater might not even be around. It may not survive it. And that would be sad because the Little Theater adds to the economic engine of the city itself. So I'm open. If anybody has any suggestions, please send them to Kristen. Kristen can send them to me, or just send them to I'm on Facebook, Kenneth Joseph Proposer. Please send me anything you can think of, or I really appreciate it.
Okay, you did mention ambient lighting around the building. What were your thoughts?
Well, I was thinking the old-fashioned, it's like comes out of a pole, comes straight out this way. It's like a gooseneck lamp. It comes down. It's like the old street lights. It's just a round frame that comes this way, and the bulb is underneath.
Sure.
Well, I like what you said too. I like the idea of lighting it from down up. Much more dramatic. And
Yeah, the putting those sign fixtures out there would not light anything above that particular level of fixture up. So putting ground lighting down in a very flood manner, not in a spot manner, but a flood manner, so that you cast a wide view of lighting and you can control the lumens, that would cast a nice reflection off the building, which would then recast back into the area, the sidewalk, and light the area. So that might be something, just a suggestion, that you want to look at for lighting. And that's pretty cost effective, probably more cost effective than hanging those fixtures off the building.
Well, oh, definitely. Not that you don't, because to hang something like that on the building, then you have to do all the conduit piping. And I don't really want to do, we don't want to do that on the outside of the building.
Nope. Or you'd have to do it from the inside, which means disturbing all of the whatever the surface is inside the building. So
How thick
you
those
might
are.
want to look at the ground lighting application.
I think the ground is much more beneficial and easier to do, because to drill through those walls, some of those walls are 18 inches thick.
Yes. Yep.
So Rick, I have a question. So are you talking something like on the ground, but what they did at the YMCA up on the upper level where it illuminates the top of their building? Is that what you mean?
No, we're talking, this is ground lighting. It's right at the ground level.
Like
And
they
it
do at
just
Charlton Memorial.
elevates lighting up, strictly light. What the Y did is they put fixtures on the window ledges and on the ledge of the building to cast light up. This is the principle would be the same, but it would be only from the ground.
No, that's what I meant. The same idea, but
Yes.
started on the ground, so that because it illuminates the YMCA, it illuminates the whole top of it, and it actually can even change the color, I believe.
Well, I don't think we want to change colors. We're just gonna.
Right.
No, but I'm saying it
Yeah,
can.
we leave that up to Charlton Memorial up the street. But that, I understand what Rick is saying, and I like that idea too.
I think that would look really nice, the uplighting like that.
Because we're gonna do something on that corner, just to brighten up the whole area, I mean.
Yeah.
But of course,
Well-
there's other issues going on with the fire bond. Like I said, right now, nothing's happening. Little Theater has shut down since March of this year. And right now, nothing, there's only one little thing in the planning, but it's an online performance. I have that's all I know. It's an online performance. I don't want anything to do with it, so I don't pay attention. Too much work. But anyway, I really appreciate your time. Like I said, if anybody has any thoughts or suggestions, then I'd love to hear them. So
Well,
just-
before,
You are unmuted.
okay,
Kristen, I would like to ask Mr. Raposa if he has any input from the neighbors. Was there any input from the planning board and any input from the neighbors?
Joyce, nothing.
You can mute me.
Just to answer Joyce's question, no, we have not gone any further with that because I'm still tying up the CPA project. And this is just a little, like I said, fact-finding information deal. That's all this is.
I could probably help you, Joyce. There is one neighbor that I was speaking to who is probably 3 homes down from Prospect, 4 homes down. I'm not going to tell you which side. But when I was talking to them, I mentioned that this meeting was coming up and about the marquee and things of that nature. And when they heard a marquee with LED lighting, their number one comment was, well, they're going to hear from one hangry, disturbed neighbor. I said, but you haven't looked at it yet. I said, we got to talk about this, with the presentation. And he said, if it's an LED marquee, it's going to be bright and flashing out information. And he said, not in this neighborhood. I said, okay. And I just left it alone because we hadn't met yet. But that's one of your neighbors in that area who's really against it.
I think I know who you're talking about. But that's all I have to add right now. Like I said, it's just a fact-finding mission. And until I know what's going to happen with Little Theater, I can't do it. There's nothing else to be done.
Mhm.
You know, I'm just being a little proactive, getting some info and some feedback.
no, and that's good.
Thank
And
you.
plus it gives us a little bit of time to maybe to go by there. And now that we have an idea of what it is that you're looking to do, we can all take a cruise by there and just see what other kind of ideas we could come up with. And then,
As I can tell you right now, these marquees, they're not cheap.
No.
I'm talking just the marquee itself, not the installation, $17,000. So for $17,000, you have to be able to play with it. Like I told them, can I lower the illumination of it? They said, of course you can. It's all done by computer. So, but if I have to get into this deeper, that's when I'll start checking out with the neighbors and get everybody's feedback and stuff like that. Okay?
Okay, good. That's fair. That's very fair.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Safe
yeah,
Happy holidays.
Thank you for presenting, Ken. Thank you. Have a good night and a pleasant holiday.
Be well, everybody.
thank you. Okay. So, moving on. So next on the agenda, we have Chris Nielsen that is looking for a letter of support for emergency CPC funds for roof repair at the building. The address is 8084 North Main Street. So I'm going to ask Chris to speak a little bit about what's going on, the plans for the building and that, and just give us an idea of what they're looking at going forward. So. We can't hear you, Chris.
Sorry.
Oh,
Thank
there
you. My name is Christopher Nielsen. I'm at 385 Columbia Street with the Business Innovation Center. We've been exploring the 80-84, and I say that because a lot of people have gotten lost trying to find 8084, and it doesn't exist. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the property because one of the members of my team, Anton Diaz, was working with you folks to try and get it gifted to the city, which didn't happen. We've been looking at it as an opportunity for the Business Innovation Center. It's a very significant project, and we're trying to work through the complexities of being able to be gifted the building if everything works out as we're trying to put together. What we would be doing is expanding our concept of the Business Innovation Center and really trying to create a sustainable institution for a long term in the city. And it would, I believe, tie in really well with the library being there and with some of the plans that I've heard talked about with the armory. And we would have a maker space, we would have a collaborative working space, we would have creative space, we would have a lot of training and education, a variety of different things, very similar to what we're doing right now at the current location at 385 location or Columbia Street, except it would be kind of, I call it the BIC on steroids. And we've got some really good partners, one of which I'm luring in from Rhode Island. It's a company called, or a nonprofit called Tinker Bristol, and they are a pretty robust makerspace and concept, and they've got some really good ideas. And so we're building a team, and we're trying to do what we can to restore the property. There's a lot of hurdles. This is a very complex project, and it's not going to happen overnight. The reason that we're asking for this, the emergency funding and the letter of support, is that the roof is in really bad shape. And if this takes a while to do, that property is in serious jeopardy of being damaged to a very significant level. And we don't want to see it turn out kind of like the police station. That was very much neglected and left alone. Nobody took the ball. And so I'm trying to maintain a certain level of integrity in the structure of the building. The property has two roofs. It has a front roof and a rear roof. The rear roof is leaking all over the place, and the only way to solve that problem is to completely restore, or put on a new roof. Okay, that one can be done as an overlay. The other roof is going to be very expensive, and that requires taking it all off and starting from scratch. But it can be repaired. We can kind of repair it and maybe get a couple years out of it while we're making plans and raising money and putting those things together. So what we're trying to do is go after some funding to cover the cost of replacing or doing an overlay on the rear roof and doing the minimum repairs to keep the leaking, so that we could slowly work through some of the internal repairs and get it to an occupied space, which we would occupy the first floor with the Business Innovation Center, and then slowly start working on occupying the other floors as it relates to our mission in trying to build communities of communities and help prepare people for the future of work. That's really what we're all about at the Business Innovation Center. And then we have this cafe, and we do a lot of soup kitchen things and outreach to the community that isn't really part of our mission, but it's our personal mission. So we kind of add that in, and we'll be doing a lot of other things with that. We have a, if those of you don't know, we have a 24/7 Portuguese radio station called Rede Rádio, broadcasting from there, and we have a television studio where we do have a few programs. We're kind of on hold with the fun of COVID, but overall, we've got a lot of activities ready to move forward, and we're looking at this property as hopefully a future location where we can expand, even have more social distancing if that's the case, and then at that point. But there's a lot of opportunity for that, and I think it would be a really valuable asset to have that building restored for the city of Fall River. So we're building a team and trying to define all the partners that we can gather, and we hope that we can get your support on this initial letter of recommendation that would take us to get the funding to help us protect the building so it doesn't get into further repair. Because whether we're able to be successful, somebody needs to be successful with that property. It's too valuable for the city of Fall River, or too valuable for the city of Fall River. And either way, this will be a step in the right direction for that.
Well, I think that it has historic significance, and I have no problem with, I'll let everyone else speak, but I wouldn't have a problem making a motion to give you a letter of intent, or a letter from our society. It is a historic building, and all historic property
You are unmuted.
should be.
Kristen, it's Joyce again. I would have
Thank you.
two questions. I'm not sure that I understood who owns this building, number one. And number two, has the building inspector given this a positive as to saving the building? Is it worth saving according to the building inspector? And I'll go on mute.
Well, that's certainly, those are great questions. And the first question is Monty Ferris, the former owner of the Venus de Milo. He's the current owner of the property. I think it's Durfee Land Trust is the actual company. And we are negotiating a way to try and make this a transfer to our nonprofit. There's a lot of complications in that. And once we have that in place, we'll be moving towards the meeting with the city is a very important step of this. Regardless of whether we're able to do, make it work in our current situation, the building is worth saving. It's a historical part of the fabric of Fall River. If you go in there and you see those huge vaults, it's breathtaking, and it really deserves to survive whatever it takes. The city was offered this property before, and they didn't want it because it's a big project, and it would probably cost the city quite a bit more to implement than what I would probably be able to do as a, with my experience in kind of working from the street level up and doing it slowly versus all at once, and with probably a different kind of scrutiny that the city would have to take. This is my this would be my third restoration project in Fall River. The Business Innovation Center is one, and we did another property further down on North Main Street prior to that. So I'm kind of moving along. We have the experience, and we have a good team, and absolutely in the steps of progression, meeting with the city and getting their collaboration and cooperation is absolutely part of the process. And I've been working with Glenn and Eugene over in the building department on our current project. We've got a good working relationship. I've got two architects on our team. We've got good legal representation. We've got a good baseline of people that are going to help us try and make all the pieces fit into place. And we're working to try and make something positive happen with that.
So I actually met with Chris and I toured the building several weeks ago. And I did see the area, especially in the back where all the damage is being done from the roof leaking. And I did take photos of that, so I can actually send pictures to you so that you can see what it looks like. Right now, I mean, as far as the building is not in imminent danger of falling apart. We were able to walk through it, and I wasn't afraid that the building was going to fall down. But if it's left in the current state that it is, it will cause further damage and the building will deteriorate. And as you know, we've lost so many buildings in this city to just neglect, and it really would be a shame to lose this building, because as Chris was saying, the vaults in the building are incredible. The doors to the vaults, it's just mind blowing when you look at them. They're just so cool. And I personally, I think it would be a shame to see something happen to this building when there's a way to fix it, to you know, to keep that from happening. Because the roof, having roof damage is really what starts the whole deterioration process in a lot of these buildings. And if it was just, if we could fix the roofs on so many of them, you would have been able to save a lot more of these buildings, so.
Absolutely. Well, I definitely in support of this, and I'd like to make a motion that we provide a letter of support for this emergency project.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay, so Patty has made a motion to send a letter and Rick has seconded. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a roll call vote. Okay, so Patty,
Aye.
Richard,
Yes,
Ruben,
Aye.
and Joyce. We have to unmute Joyce.
You are unmuted.
Yes, I support this.
Okay, and I, Kristen, also support sending a letter of support. So we will have that, we will get that done for you.
Do you need my address to send that?
I have your email, so I
All
can
right.
actually, I'll get in touch with you by email and I'll just get a little more information from you, just so I know exactly, you know. Oh, look, there's Vinny. Just
Yeah, speaking of.
off the side, there's Vinny. So yeah, Chris, I will be in touch with you on that and I'll get you the letter.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate your time and support.
Thank you
You'll be
so
hearing
much.
more from us.
Great. Okay, so next on our list, we have Michael Martens with the Fall River Historical Society. They are also looking for a letter of support for their CPC application. They're looking to do work on the roof and the cupola, so everybody did receive it in a packet. So as you know, in the past, we've supported the Historical Society's projects, and I mean, I believe this one was pretty straightforward. I don't know if anybody has any comments, any discussion on it.
No, I think we definitely want to save this roof.
Yeah.
No, and it was a pretty detailed application and all this, yeah, the supporting. I don't know if anybody else has any questions. I do not, though.
Okay, Rick, Ruben, Joyce.
no, I support getting a letter of agreement out there.
Okay,
You are
Yeah.
unmuted.
Yeah, I'm back again. I support getting a letter of support for the Historical Society.
okay. So does someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we support Michael Martin's request for the Historic Society roof.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so I have a motion by Rick, okay, and Patty second. Roll call vote. Patty, Rigo,
Aye.
Richard? You're voting.
Yes,
Okay. Ruben,
Aye.
Joyce,
You are unmuted.
I support this motion.
okay, and I, Kristen, also support it. So we have unanimous and no one is opposed. So we will get a letter of support done for the Historical Society. Now we actually, moving on, I'm wondering if we could just, if someone could make a motion to take number 7 out of order. I believe it's number 7, Jean and Jim Padilla, because Jean is here and I don't want to keep her here all night. So if we could, if somebody would like to make a motion, that way we can have her move up.
I'll
Sure.
make the motion that we take 7 out of order.
And I'll second that motion that we take number 7 out of order.
Okay, so I have a second, motion and a second. I'll do a roll call vote. Patty,
Aye.
Rick,
Yes,
Ruben,
Aye.
Joyce. We just have to wait to unmute Joyce.
You are unmuted.
Okay, I support that.
Okay, and I support that as well. So I would like to ask Jeannie to, if she has anything that she'd like to say. So they are looking for a letter of support. Now, we did give them one. In their last go around, they had an application for CPA funds to do a study of the building. And they did that. We supported them for that. So now they have a new project that they're applying for CPC funds. So Jeannie just wants to, if you can just state your name and address for the record. And
I'm Jean Padilla with Jim Padilla, Azar Padilla Realty Trust, and the property is 36 to 56 Water Street on the waterfront in Fall River. So we did have thank you for jumping me up. My dog is like knocking me over. she's getting hungry, but anyway. So yes, we were very pleased and appreciative to have that study with Keen Architects. I had never heard of a feasibility study before. I was blown away with just the whole process. This is all news to me, but so they did their study, and as you know, no surprise, they said start from the top. They walked on the roof and said, yes, you need to replace this roof. I mean, we have in the close to 20 years that we've owned, maybe not 20 that we've owned the building, but we've been there almost 25 years. And we've repaired the roof. We've been repairing it and repairing it and repairing it. And, you know, it's going to be beyond that soon. And being the historic building it is, and part of the waterfront, and all the reasons that we have, you know, explained before, and that you have graciously agreed with. We really appreciate the opportunity and look forward to and are asking for your letter of support so that we can move forward with preserving this building.
okay, so does anyone have any thoughts, any questions for Jeannie?
it's okay. So you're looking for money for a feasibility study here,
No.
well as a roof.
We did that last year. They already got the feasibility study done. That's what we had sent a letter of support for last year.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it's the roof.
Okay. Well, it's a historic building, and we want to try and maintain these mill structures that we have. So again, it's got to go before the CPA or CPC commission.
Yes.
So I'm in favor, and I'll make a motion to get a letter of agreement sent out, and you can carry that forth to the CPC.
I agree with Rick. I mean, this is absolutely a really historic property, especially insofar as mills go. Very important, and it's still in you know, good standing. So I think we really need to keep it from getting any further deterioration that, you know, all old buildings get. So I second Rick's motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. And the one thing I want to say too is not only is it a part of a historic mill complex, but it is also part of the newly created Arts and Cultural District on the waterfront. So it's even more important because it's certainly going to be even though it really is a little hub of tourism right now with the battleship and everything else right down there, I think it's going to be even more so, you know, once everything opens back up again. So very important. But anyway, I have a motion
This
in a
is,
second. So, yeah. Sorry,
this
Rick.
is, yeah, this is a question regarding the building. When I believe I saw on this building some plans that showed some sort of a atrium, a glass atrium on the side. No, was that not
That's
this
a
building?
different-
It was
no,
in that
that's-
same complex, though.
That's
Okay.
something different. That's way in the back. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That had done that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe?
forget the question, was answered.
That sounds nice, though.
It does.
No, I don't think so. Not in that complex. It just didn't fit well.
Yeah, that's a different person, different building.
Okay, thank you.
In the future, you know, that rooftop.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a motion and a second, so I am going to do a roll call vote. Patty, Rigo,
Aye.
Rick Mancini,
Yes,
okay, Ruben Amro,
Aye.
Joyce Rodrick,
You are unmuted.
I support this.
okay, and I also support it as well. So that is a unanimous vote, so I will get a letter ready for Mrs. Padilla.
Another step on the way. Thank you very much, everybody.
You're welcome.
you're entirely welcome.
Thank you for attending. Now go take care of your pup.
It was fun. My poor dog. All right, thank you.
Okay,
You're welcome.
have a good night. Thanks.
Good night now.
Thank you.
Okay, so can someone make a motion to go back to our agenda, please?
I make a motion to go back to, what is it, number 4 on, number 3 on the agenda, well, number 4 on the new agenda. Yep. Make a motion to go back to number 4.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
I'll
Second
second that.
that.
Oh, okay, Ruben's got it.
Okay, so roll call vote, Patty,
Aye.
Rick,
Yes,
Ruben,
Aye.
and Joyce.
You are unmuted.
Yes.
Okay, and Christine, I say yes as well. So we will start with the first agenda item from William Kenny, from Bill Kenny. He is looking for a letter of support for his CPC application for the restoration of the City Hall bells. So I will turn it over to Mr. Kenny to introduce himself and tell us a little more.
Thank you, Kristen. Thanks, folks, for giving me this chance to speak to you about this. Can everybody hear me okay?
yes, we can.
Good, okay. This project involves something that I see every morning when I look out my window in City Hall. And I don't know if you know the history of the bell tower that's across the street, across 3rd Street from the 3rd Street entrance to City Hall. The bells that are hanging in that tower were the bells that originally hung in the City Hall in Fall River. And as you know, the City Hall was demolished to build Route 195, and the bells went on the road from there. They were in storage for a while, and then they were set up with that same support structure at a place called South Main Place, which you may or may not remember, up near where the Justice Center is now. There was an interior mall built as part of the urban renewal plan back in the late 70s, which failed and was subsequently demolished. So the bells had to move, and they moved down to opposite the 3rd Street entrance to City Hall, and they actually created a tiny plaza to display them. The thought that I had, and Chris Gallagher from Community Maintenance had, was that it'd be very nice to bring those bells back to life. So we tracked down the mechanism that controls them, which is located in the ILGWU building directly next to the bells, directly next to the tower, which Tony Cordero has recently purchased. And he's not quite sure yet what he's going to do with the building, but we asked him for a tour and he let us in, and we went into the basement and found the mechanism that controls the bells. Probably still functional, but antique or obsolete in a sense. To operate the bells with the old system, you physically go into the cellar of the building and poke a few buttons and it comes to life. And a couple of problems with that. First, the technology today is such that you can operate it from your cell phone almost any place you might imagine. And also, if we want the mechanism to be accessible to the public, it's probably got to move out of Tony Cordero's building. We don't know what he's going to do with the building. If he tears it down, certainly there's no place to put the control mechanism, and it should be in a publicly accessible place anyway. So the application is to do some work. The CPC application is to do some work to get rid of some graffiti on the walls that surround the tiny plaza where this structure is located, to paint the structure, to repair the surface of the little mini plaza where it's located, to get a new remote operated from your cell phone control mechanism, and to fix the bells themselves. They need a little bit of work on part of the mechanism that is responsible for causing them to vibrate, and they need to be polished up. And I think that the issue that CPC had was that a lot of the features of this project really they didn't think were eligible for CPC funding. We broached it as an open space project, and they didn't really think it was open space. It's a plaza, but it's not really a park in the traditional sense. And so they weren't too certain that it was an open space project, but they did say, well, those bells are historic. And so maybe you could qualify for at least some of the funding under that theory. So we're going to proceed with the project one way or another. And we're hoping to get at least some funding from CPC to get the mechanism to make them ring and to do the little repair work that has to be done to the bells so that they'll vibrate on command. And then the city will probably be able to contribute some labor and materials to fix up the plaza and paint and get rid of the rust on the tower and fix a couple of spots where it needs some welding. So I'm pretty confident that one way or another, we're going to cobble this thing together, and in the not too distant future, you'll be able to hear the bells ring from the tower, hear the city hall bells ring again. So I was advised by the CPC after having presented all this to them that since the bells were historic, and that would probably be the category under which we could qualify for at least some funding from CPC, that we should present ourselves to the Historic Commission and ask you for a letter of support. And so that's why I'm here tonight.
Well, Bill, I appreciate your eagerness and your determination and your forward movement to keep some historic properties, well intact in the city. And I also like putting the city, letting the city put some skin in the game. If CPC does approve a given amount of funding, you really want to get the city to put some skin in the game, which I think is really good. In my opinion, it's being approached properly. And I, for one, I got a few years on everybody here, but I worked in Liggett's drugstore for years. What did they call us? Carbonic engineers, But when I was going to high school, I worked there. And I remember the city hall well, But anyway, I'm in favor of that. And I know others want to speak up, but I'm willing to approve a letter of agreement.
Thank you. Appreciate the support.
Only when you're doing the right thing, Bill. I'll fight you just as hard if it's in the wrong direction.
Well, I'm trying to remember, was there a time when I tried to do the wrong thing? I can't quite remember.
Not yet, apparently. I think those bells are and have an amazing history to them. I actually just recalled seeing them not too long ago and wondering, they looked familiar to me. So now thank you for putting the history together that they used to be at the South Main place where the bus station used to be. So they have traveled and they do deserve a little bit of a better home. And I think anytime we have anything in Fall River that's got a little bit of a history and that has the ability and the structure is there, we just need to make it look a little bit better. And I think it's worth it, it's worth the historical value and it's worth the time and effort. So I also support providing a letter of support.
Thank you.
And I support it as well.
Okay, it's Joyce again, unmuted. Thank you, Bill, for taking the lead on this. I support a letter of support.
Thank you, Joyce.
And I do as well. And I think too, people tend to see historic properties as the historic thing that everybody's trying to save. And there are more pieces of our history in the city than just properties. Even something like bells, or you have the fountains, things like that. There's a lot of bits and pieces of our property that are equally as important as some of the buildings. And this is certainly one of them. And I think just to hear the bells chiming again would be so great. And I think too, with what they're trying to do in that area where I know Mr. Zero has apartments that he's working on. They're working on getting people actually living now down in that part of the city. So hopefully you'll see more people around there. I just think that would be a really nice thing for people to hear.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really nice to hear the bells chime and, give the cell phone to the mayor. He can sit at home on the convenience of his sofa in his living room and turn the bells on from there. But no, you're right. That whole,
Oh, the
that
power.
whole neighborhood, yeah.
The power.
That whole neighborhood is really,
in the morning.
that neighborhood's really starting to come to life with a lot of the people that have moved into Tony Cordero's new units. And the redevelopment authority and the planning department also have some other interesting proposals that we're working on and will surface soon to really enhance that core area of the city. If you're ever going to have a vibrant downtown, you've got to have some people living there with some disposable income. And you don't have that now. Retail can't thrive in the atmosphere that we have down there. Tony's projects are contributing to people that will live there and hopefully support local retail. And anything you can do to increase the aesthetics and the ambiance of that neighborhood, such as the bells, I think is a step in the right direction.
I agree.
But that's just me.
So I'm going to go ahead and make a motion. I don't know if one's already been made, but I'm going to make a motion to provide this letter of support for this restoration of the bells.
Okay, so I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second, so I will do a roll call vote. Patty,
Aye.
Richard,
Yes.
Ruben,
Aye.
Joyce,
You are unmuted.
Yes, I support this motion.
okay, and I, Kristen, support it as well. So we have unanimous to give a letter of support to Bill Kenny for City Hall bells.
Thank you very much. And I just wondered, does that letter come with a check enclosed?
We wish. Someday, Bill, when we actually have a budget, that might happen. But you might want to talk to the mayor first and see what you can do about getting us a budget.
Can we get him on the line right now?
You could try. If you entice him with the idea that he's going to get to ring those bells whenever he wants, that might work.
Yeah.
Good point. It's a good point.
Cool. Okay, so moving on. So Bill Kenny has another project that he's going to discuss with us, which is the Quickie Falls Walkway, and I also sent that around to everyone. So I'll let you take over again, Bill.
Okay, thank you. The origin of this really is with the perennial discussion of reconnecting the waterfront with the downtown. And when I was on my first tour of duty as the city planner, I worked on a number of different proposals to do that, to try and increase the travel and the connection and the interest of folks between downtown and the waterfront. And this proposal for the Quaker Falls Walkway partly comes from that, but also comes from the longstanding interest of a lot of folks. Probably Al Lima spearheads the interest to daylight the Quaker Falls. A lot of proposals have come forward over the years, some of them quite grandiose, and some of them a little bit more modest. And my thought was to put together a walk between City Hall, basically, and the waterfront, which would also include a highlighting of the falls at two spots where they're already partly daylighted, so to speak. So the concept here is to ask CPC for funding to do a concept and feasibility study of a walk, which would begin probably on the Gramada Plaza, which is directly across South Main Street or North Main Street from City Hall. And if you can, just sort of give you the vision slightly, if you can imagine some sort of interpretive panels there that would show you in a series of photographs, historic photographs and so forth, what that view might have been in the heyday of the Fall River Port as a textile and shipping center. And if you move from there, you would start walking down Pocasset Street. The landscaping would be enhanced along the way to the first or the next stop, which would be the vacant land on the uphill side of the Chamber of Commerce building, which might be a location for a mini park of sorts where there could be some interpretive display about the history of the falls, because that's almost at the spot where the major falls actually did appear back in the day, and some discussion of the importance of the falls to the development of the city and the location of the city there. Moving past the Chamber building, as you approach the highway, there's another section of land that the Chamber might be willing to contribute as a park or a mini park. Underneath the bridge, there's a space. By the way, MassDOT is always interested in rescuing these orphan spaces that have been cut off by highway development, spaces under bridges that have sort of gone neglected. And there might be a possibility of enhancing that space. But the next really big stop along your walk is going to be where the falls are actually exposed on the uphill side of the building that the Workout World and so forth is located. And I don't know how many of you have had occasion to look at that, but it's really quite interesting to go down into that parking lot and see the water flowing in. And from there, it goes underneath the mill complex to another spot within the complex of that mill structure where the falls appear again quite vigorously in high water times. Excuse me 1 second, please. I'm on a Zoom, Zinni. Misbehaving. In any event, the vision is that from there you would find your way down to Central Street, bring you down to the level of the Heritage State Park. And underneath the Braga Bridge is a very interesting spot, which has been the subject of a study by the MassDOT InfraSpace program a couple of years back, where the possibility exists to really enhance that whole area, extending the parkland, making it a much better setting for the Marine Museum and the Battleship Cove and the Heritage State Park. There are banks of the river that are there that could be accessible, enhanced as parkland. So that's sort of the overall scheme, a walkway from City Hall down towards the river with some highlights along the way, parks and falls daylighting. So when we presented that to CPC, I think one of the issues they had was the ownership of that mill complex. Both of the spots where the falls are exposed are on land that is owned by the owners of that mill. And anything done to enhance them, to enhance those spots, to make them accessible for public viewing in any way would have to be with their cooperation. But I think that the reason for the feasibility study is partly to reach out to the mill owners and also to the chamber, which is the other major landowner along that stretch other than the state, and to enter into discussions about what's possible. The purpose of this is to show what the future might be, and also to show that it's not cuckoo bird stuff, that it really is feasible, that there are people who own properties who are interested in talking about this. And the study may come back and say, nope, it's a non-starter. They're not interested in the concept that you have, and it's over. But maybe with some work, something can be done. And my initial reading is that the chamber is willing to talk about it, and that I'm told that in the past, the owners of the mill complex have expressed interest in cooperating with the city to do something along these lines. That I can't confirm. I have a letter out to them to get their input, and I will be talking to the chamber soon. But the issue for you guys is, having said all that, the point of my being in front of you is that this is an historic property. It's on the National Register and so forth, local register. And for that reason, the CPC sees this project as partly sort of qualifying as a historic project. It's partly also open space recreation, but we're going to proceed under the theory that it's all of those things. And if we do that, we are told that we need your blessing, which we would like to have and love to have, to go forward, to at least do a feasibility study as to how this mill might become a major player in this sort of a reconnection of the downtown and the waterfront, and an exposing of the falls in a way that the public could appreciate and enjoy. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Okay. Good
glad you-
story.
I'm
Good
glad you're
story,
sticking
Bill.
to it. Yeah.
Thank you.
So if I may, I'd like to go first. I wholeheartedly support this project, and because of my own experience with the interests that people have in the Quickie Falls, I do a lot of initiatives with arts and culture in the city, and most recently in the last 2 years working with the Fabric Arts Festival, which brings international focus. We work really closely with artists in Portugal, and it's the Quickie River, the Quickie Falls, that has been a major source of inspiration for artists. It's people are quite interested from all over the world about this, especially about the story of it being covered. And I myself did a walk downtown, an artistic walk, and that was a big part of the story of telling Fall River. You can't really talk about Fall River without also talking about the Quickie River and the falls. Now, you can talk about it in one way that we covered it, but I also look at it in a way that it's a hopeful thing, that we can have this resurgence, this renaissance, if you will. And I think it, not only from a visual standpoint, but the way you've incorporated the mini parks and whatnot, it can absolutely make the connection between downtown and the waterfront much more walkable. It's already walkable. I mean, you can physically walk it. It's not as nice as people would like it to be. So this is an incredible idea. Many people have a lot, like you mentioned, Al Lima. There's so many people in different pockets of the city who are quite interested in this concept. And I think that if we could have a feasibility study or some kind of a design study to kind of catalyze this movement and begin to give it some formation to get, so that everybody's looking for a way to get involved, but there's no really central engine moving forward. And this is the engine right here. So I think this is fabulous. I love the way that you mapped it out. And I think, there's never any harm in looking into something further. And I think that this is something it could be an economic driver. It could be a creative driver. It can just be something good for the health of people who live in the city. There's a lot of different facets to this. And I think it's a fabulous idea. So I thank you for putting the time into this and bringing it forward again, because you're right, it is a perennial conversation, but one that the reason it keeps coming up is because it needs to be done. So I support it. I'd love to hear what other people think as well.
Well, Patty, having heard your comments, I guess this project's even better than I thought it was. So I appreciate all that.
You're welcome.
I'm in agreement with Patty, and prior to this, I'd always look at pictures, old pictures of downtown forever, and saw the waterfalls and how beautiful it looked. And it's unfortunate that they covered all these areas up, and that really the only time I've seen it is through pictures and not very up close. And I'd love to see all these areas daylighted. So I'm in agreement with this as well.
I am as well, and especially for one reason, our name, the name of our city is Fall River. The river, the falls. I mean, you can't get any more city than that. I mean, that is our essence. Our essence of our city is that right there. So anything that, to me, that puts a focus on that is so significant. And especially since there's so many people working so hard to really turn that area around, to really just boost that area, and this to me would be significant. And I understand some of the theory in why the CPC was thinking the way that they did, in that you're not sort of saving anything historic per se, but you are bringing attention to something that is really historic and essential to our essence as a city. So yeah, I think this is really important.
I'll
Could you
just
write that
mimic.
down so I don't forget what you said?
I can write that in the letter.
Yeah, I think I just got unmuted.
You did.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Nope, they muted her again.
Well, very quickly, I just mimic everyone's comments, and I'm in agreement with getting a letter of agreement.
Can we just unmute Joyce again?
You are unmuted.
Okay. I wanted to get back to Bill because I think there's a big picture that goes back to the first Correa administration. Am I right? That
Yeah, there was,
that you had the idea, or the plan at that time was to basically open up the Quickie River so that it would be similar to what is going on with the Blackstone River. So
Yeah,
there is a big picture, Patty, and I will support Bill's effort to do this project.
Yeah, thank you, Joyce. I just, that project from the first Correa being, not the Jesu Correa, but the Correa before that, there was a major study done. And I think the scale of it scared people away, in a sense. It almost looked unattainable, which is one of the reasons that what I'm proposing to study here is a little more modest approach, which I think is, when you're thinking about planning, and you have to plan for what's realistic and what's reasonably attainable. Not to forget, Al Lima and I are, no spring chickens. We'd like to see something.
I knew this was coming. Oh, boy.
So is there
Well,
anybody?
I'd like to make a motion to provide a letter of support for the Quickie Falls Walkway.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I think that was Ruben making a second.
Did you second it,
Just
Ruben?
not hearing him.
Yes, I second that.
That was a
Okay.
mute second.
You read your lips. Okay, so I have a motion and a second. I will do a roll call vote. Patty?
Aye.
Okay, Rick?
Yes.
Ruben?
Aye.
Joyce?
You are unmuted.
And I support. This is yes.
Okay, and I support it as well. So it is unanimous. And so, Mr. Kenny, you will get a second letter.
Well, you can't do much better than unanimous, but I'm getting a little nervous because the last three boards that I presented to, I've had unanimous decisions on all three items. So anyway, thank you all
It's
very much.
possible people just really like your ideas, Bill.
Bill,
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Bill,
too.
Before you
Have a
leave-
good evening.
I've been
And Carrie,
staring at
behave yourself.
the bookshelf the entire night. Second shelf, fifth book to the left. Think you could bring it in for me tomorrow?
You know, there's a lot of family heirlooms and knickknacks back there, and I probably should cover them up, you know.
No. I just want that red book. It's got me curious.
I'll bring them all. You can choose tomorrow in
Here,
the office.
perfect.
Good night, everybody. Thank you very much.
Good night,
Okay, good night.
Kenny.
Kristen, I'm just gonna plug in my computer. It's gonna die. I'll be right back, okay?
Okay, so moving on, we have a CPC application from Charles and Gloria Jacobson for 77 Freedom Street. And that is the old police and fire station. So we have supported them again in the past with their first application to CPC. So right now what they're looking to do is some masonry restoration. They are working with an architect. I know they have they've done work already on the project that we had supported. So I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, the only comment I would make, and you know, we all know Charlie and Gloria very well, but, and they're always out there doing good historic restorations and really good value to the city. However, I thought we had a motion made and agreed upon that people were going to come in with and speak to us and show us when they had requests for letters, so we could get a better understanding of what they were asking.
Well, I mean, in some cases, I don't think it was always necessary. I think what we were talking about is more like when we're doing the continuous letters of support for the mills and things like that, the ongoing for historic tax credits. The application that they had given us was pretty, I thought, explanatory in what they were doing. Like it breaks everything down. They're doing masonry work on a historic property. So ultimately what they're trying to do is preserve the property. So I'm not, so what is it that you're looking for more clarification on?
Well, that's a wide statement. We're gonna do some masonry work. Yes. Where, how much, where, on the inside, outside? You know, what are we looking at? A foundation? We're looking at walls? Are we looking at scrub coating? Are we looking at brick or a mortar joints replaced? I mean, what are we doing?
Well, a lot of that I believe is in the application. I believe Civitex broke a lot of that down. I don't know. I mean, if you have more questions than what's in the application, we can certainly ask them to come before us.
Yeah, I'm just up in the air as to what and how much is being done, and but you know, again, it is a historic structure, and money was given in the past, so it almost seems counterproductive for us not to give a letter of agreement, because the final decision will be made by the CPA or CPC at a future date. But I just believe, I'm a believer of that if we're going to be historic commission is going to be working tightly with the CPC or other individuals who are venturing into maintaining historic properties, that we just need more clarification, more specifics than I'm just going to replace a roof. Well, what are you replacing it with? You know, or in this case, we're going to do masonry repairs. Well, what does that consist of? You know, is it a sidewalk, mortar joints, scrub coating, pointing? What are they doing? You know, so that's all I'm suggesting, is that what we do is we get a clearer definition of the work that's being done, you know, and then we could approve it. I know they're doing the best, and I know that, and it's deep in their heart. And I'm not saying not to make a motion to send them a letter of agreement. I'm just relating back that I think we need to be more tightly knit with these requests. That's all.
Okay.
Make
I
sense?
I agree with Rick in that the scope of work is very minimal in what they're telling us. I would hate to hold up a letter as well, but I would like to see drawings like they mentioned in their proposal, just so we can get a better understanding of what they're attacking on the buildings. Again, I didn't go through the whole document, but I'm in agreement with Rick.
Okay, I mean, we can certainly ask them to come to the next meeting to clarify before we give them a letter. I mean, the application deadline is the 15th of January, I believe.
Yes.
But we have given letters after that date. I mean, they can still submit their application, and they've turned in supplemental things after the fact, because as you know, we always have people that find out at the last minute, oh, I needed a letter, and they come to us and it's after the deadline. So we can do that. We can ask them.
And we'll be having our next meeting before the 15th of January, I believe.
I don't know. We haven't scheduled one.
No, but normally it's the second Tuesday, so.
No, it's the third.
Third, right? Yeah.
Third,
Third
oh boy,
Tuesday.
my loss. Okay.
And now with it also depends, because with everything going on Zoom, and they can only do basically one live meeting a night, so we can't always depend that it's going to be that date. It's kind of, we have to see what's open and what's available, and then we have to go with that. So,
Mhm.
but either way, even if it's a little bit after the fact, we can still
Okay.
do that. We just have to be able to get them to send over more information to us and be able to somehow do Zoom. So, but I think their daughter might be able to set that up with them.
Okay. Good.
Okay, so do you want to make a motion to
Table.
to the next meeting and have them come before us?
Sure. Yes, I'll make that motion that we table till the next meeting.
Okay, so I have a motion to table it until the next meeting and ask them to come and give us more information. Do I have a second?
Yep, I'll second that.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. I will do a roll call vote on that. Okay, Patty,
Aye.
Rick,
Yes.
Ruben,
Aye.
Joyce,
You are unmuted.
Yes, I support that motion.
okay, and I support it as well. So that is unanimous. We will table it to the next meeting, and we will ask them to come to the meeting. Well, appear. Okay. Any other discussion on that? Okay. Now the next batch, we have applications that were submitted from Michael Labossiere from the Department of Community Utilities. He's looking for letters of support for 4 CPC applications. So they are Thomas Borden Farm Acquisition and Protection Project, the North Wartupple Pond Historic Seawall Project, Barnabas Blossom Workshop Restoration Project, and the Interlock and Cultural Resources Stabilization Project. So we can take those one at a time. So the Thomas Borden Farm Acquisition and Protection Project would be the first one. So they actually have applied under 3 different categories because it actually does meet 3 different categories. So open space, recreation, and historic preservation. I know they did send a good amount of information to go through, so I'm not sure if anybody has any thoughts. It is the last remaining working farm that's east of the Wartupple Pond, and it does have it has a 170-year-old farmhouse with a 2-story barn on the property. So they are looking to restore the buildings ultimately on the property and use them like some sort of adaptive reuse for education. So if anyone has any comments.
I don't have any reservations about it. I think it's another piece of interesting history. I mean, I think until I got onto this commission, I didn't know about a lot of the history of the north end of the city. I mean, I grew up in the north end, but I mean, the real north end, which was really considered to be the oldest part of the city. And I think that, I mean, I know of the person who is putting forth these, and I know he has a lot of interest in like the agricultural and environmental history of the city, which I think that, you know, when we think history, it's not just buildings, as you said earlier, it's stuff like the, you know, even when we talked about the Quickie before, I mean, that goes into Native American history. There's a lot of different facets. And so people are always saying, you know, oh, Fall River, Lizzie Borden, there's a lot more. There's so much more. And this is, you know, one of the things I also didn't know about this area is how deeply ingrained the agriculture is. And so I think this would be an interesting thing, especially if they're going to make it into an educational center. I like the idea of that, taking money and using it for something that's going to then give back to education, not only for people who live here, because I think instilling a greater sense of pride in people that live here so that they can understand Fall River and understand the history of Fall River, but also providing a point of interest for tourists, a different point of interest, people who are, you know, agricultural enthusiasts or people who are environmental enthusiasts. I mean, this is a really interesting project. So I support providing a letter of support for this application.
Okay. Anyone else like to speak on this?
No, the only thing I would, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I think I just got unmuted. Can we all hear me?
Yes.
Yep, we can hear you.
All right, I support this. I remember Mr. Labossiere coming before the commission almost 2 years ago, I believe. And I know this is a life's work for him. So I know that the outline has been with us for that long period of time, and he continues to do this work. So like Patty, I would support the effort 100%.
Okay, Ruben, Rick?
No, I would just, this is very well, it's better, it's defined much better in the application, and he's got the photos to go along with it. But I would just second this by saying I would really like to see these applicants come before us when they've got major projects like this to get an approval. I know I'm probably going to be the bad guy tonight, but that's sort of a stand that I'd like to take. You know, but I do agree that, you know, I'm in agreement. I know all of this property real well. As a youngster, I roamed through these properties many, many, many times back in the 50s. So, okay, enough said.
Ruben?
Don't have anything to add other than I am in agreement with everyone else.
Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion on this particular project?
Sure, I'll make a motion to provide a letter of support for the Thomas Borden Farm Acquisition and Protection Project.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
All right, I'll second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, so I will do a roll call vote. Patty?
Aye.
Okay, Rick?
Yes.
Ruben?
Yes.
Joyce?
You are unmuted.
Yes.
Okay, and Kristen, that is me. I say yes as well. So unanimous, we will do a letter of support for the Thomas Borden Farm acquisition. Okay, and the next project that they have submitted is the North Wartupple Pond Seawalls Condition Assessment and Restoration Plan. So what they're looking for is to hire an engineering firm to conduct a conditions assessment and restoration plan for the cut granite retaining walls that surround the reservoir for the city's drinking water. So the North Wartupple Pond.
And that's in dire need. I was just there less than a month ago, and that wall is in dire need of repair.
Right. So what they're looking to do is an assessment to see exactly what it needs. And I agree with you. It really needs it.
What they need is a good masonry contractor. That's what they need. Ruben, you ready to handle that project?
Yeah, bring me in.
Yeah, we can give them the assessment. It's in poor shape.
I think they know that. I think they're looking for a little more detail, but yeah. Okay, does anyone have any other comments on this?
Nope.
Okay. Again, it's just another one of those really historic, iconic things that people just don't really think about because again, it's not a structure, but it really, I mean, you have the walls that are surrounding our drinking pond and you see them all the time. And I think people just don't even realize what they're looking at. You drive by them on the highway, or if you're even going through the reservation, you see the walls and that, but you just don't pay attention and realize how historic these walls really are and how long they've been there for. So.
I'll make a motion to send a letter of agreement.
Okay, so I have a motion from Rick. Do I have a second?
Sure, I'll second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, so I will do a roll call vote. So Patty?
Aye.
Rick?
Yes.
Ruben?
Aye.
Joyce?
You are unmuted.
I support that motion. This is Joyce.
Okay, and I, Kristen, support it as well. So we will send a letter of support for the North Pond Historic Seawall Project. Okay, next up is the Barnabas Blossom Workshop Restoration. This actually was a project that they had applied for I believe it was last year, it was either last year or the year before. And then they withdrew the project, but we had actually given them a letter of support. They came before us, they talked about the project, and we did agree to give them a letter. So basically, what we would need to do, it's the same letter because it's the exact same project. They want to do the same exact thing, is just to update the letter that we had originally voted to give them, unless somebody has a reason why they don't want to support the project anymore. So this is the one with it's a early 19th century building
Mm-hmm.
that's at the Wartupple Reservation headquarters, and they're going to use it as like an interim bioreserve discovery center while they look to build a permanent facility. So they're going to be restoring a historic building on the property.
And again, it looks like Diamond and Roger Williams are contributing some labor and materials and things to these projects, which is really good. I like that idea.
I think it's great too. You bring in local students, so not only is it educational ultimately for the general population, but the students that are working on it at the same time, and they get to really delve into that that bit of history. So.
That's excellent. Yeah, I absolutely agree. We should provide update our letter of support that we had already agreed upon before, and I'd like to make a motion that we update that letter.
Okay, so I have a motion.
I second that.
To
I didn't have an issue to begin with. I don't have one now.
Okay. So I have a motion and a second. So roll call vote. Patty.
Aye.
Rick.
Yes.
Ruben.
Aye.
Joyce.
You are unmuted.
I support this letter, revised letter. I support that.
Okay, and I, Kristen, support it as well. So we will get that letter for the Barnabas Blossom Workshop. And then their final application was the Interlock and Cultural Resource Stabilization Project. So what they're looking to do is to hire a landscape restoration architect to develop a conditions assessment and stabilization plan for the Arctic Ice and Cold Storage Company house ruins, and also the Spencer Borden Mansion Foundation, which I mean, to a lot of us, I think we've always known it as the Ice House. So they're looking to do a study on the ruins and to stabilize the ruins. And I know they had done a walk before everything happened, and it was a walk through Interlock, and they had a really great turnout for that, and I'm sure that there would be so many more people. I know I didn't get to do it and I wanted to, so I think that that would be it would be great, because there's so many people interested in touring that, and it really is an amazing little piece of history there. So I mean,
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Kristen. I didn't know much about it, and when I heard about the walk, I was also sad that I didn't get a chance to do it. So
There's a little button.
so I support a letter of support.
okay, so any other thoughts there?
You see that?
Rick, Ruben?
No, not on this. I'll just remain silent at this point.
Okay. So
I plead the fifth as well.
okay, so does anyone want to make a motion either way on this? A motion of anything?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to provide a letter of support for the Cultural Resource Stabilization Project. I'd like to see a little bit more information about it.
Okay.
I second that motion.
So I have so this is for a letter of support?
Letter of support, yes. Mhm.
Okay. So I have a motion from Patty and a second from Ruben?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I will do a roll call vote on this, and this is for a letter of support for the Interlock and
Hmm?
Cultural Resource Stabilization Project. So Patty,
Aye.
Rick,
Yes.
okay, Ruben,
Yes.
okay,
You are
Joyce,
unmuted.
I support that motion.
okay, and I, Kristen, support that motion as well. So,
My one caveat is they mentioned tree removal. I would like to see the landscape architect's plan of what trees they plan on removing. That's about it. But I agree.
okay. You want,
Yeah.
want me to put that? I mean, right now, what they're looking to do, they're not actually, from what I understand, they're not doing anything with it, as they're just doing a,
Funding for the landscape
plan.
architect, yes.
Yeah,
But saying this is gonna come around again.
Yeah.
When it does, I'd like to see the landscape.
Maybe we could just have that noted in the meeting note so that when we can be reminded when it does come back again, that we address that with the trees.
okay,
Again, many of us are very familiar with that area. I grew up right there. I swam in that, off that island so many, in the early 50s. And it is terribly overgrown. And just recently trudging through there, most of the historic value that was there in the 50s is fallen apart. The ice house is in such decrepit condition, and it's a regular forest, Ruben, on the inside. And even the foundations out the old Borden foundations, the only thing that's really standing now is somewhat of a chimney, a basic chimney. You know, there was a lot of foundation and even a few walls still standing in the early 50s. They're all gone. So I would, with Ruben, I would like to see if they do an assessment before we agree for any other letters of agreement, to see that defined more effectively, you know, with some drawings and be more descriptive in what they intend to do, because it almost sounds like you're going to put a lot of money into something that's really got nothing to see any longer. It's pretty much been abandoned and overgrown.
yeah. See, but the thing is, there were so many people when they had put it out there, and I found out when it was too late as well, that they were having a tour through the ruins of it, and there were so many people that were interested, even just touring the ruins, knowing that there really wasn't anything there. And after the fact, hearing so many people speak about what a great experience it was and how cool it was.
It's just cool to go somewhere that
Yeah.
like you're not really like the other people don't get to go to, and it's just kind of like that cachet. It's really, and I think even when they submitted their application, I saw a picture of the building. Like even just to have, like, if they had something there to show you, you can use your imagination. I mean, I totally get it. It's not like maybe the most priority thing, but it's definitely, it definitely got piqued my interest. It's something I'm still interested in learning more about. So I think there's some value there. And to Kristen's point, I mean, I think if they did that walk again tomorrow, people would be like fully signed up for it.
Absolutely. And I went there, maybe it was probably a good 15 years ago, or 20, or maybe it was a long time ago, and it wasn't on a tour. But I went and I actually saw inside the ice house. And like Rick said, it was a forest growing in there, but it's the coolest thing to see, because you walk in and you're in the ruins of this building, and you see, you know, all the stone around you and then these giant trees. It's like walking into some sort of a magical little land. And it was really, it was just something to see. So I understand Rick's concern. I understand his thought there, but to actually see it and then to know how many people were so fascinated when they actually did the walk this time, and how many people were disappointed that they didn't get to do it when they had it the last time. And I know people have talked about, oh, I really want to do this. So, you know, some people really do like stuff like that. I know some people want to see a more finished thing, and other people really want to see, you know.
Sure.
Yeah. The building's always intrigued me. It's really interesting. Even just driving down 24, you see it. And I would like to see some money put into there to preserve what's left of it. So.
I just wish Interlocking was there to see. I mean, just, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on that? Okay, moving on. We have, let's see, we did that one already. So the last one for letters of support, we have Gail Powers, and she is looking for a letter of support for her CPC application for historic markers for Oak Grove Cemetery and the North Burial Ground. And she did send pictures of that. I know I sent that around to all of you. And it was historical markers to talk about some of the noted, I guess, famous people or more well-known historical figures that are buried in each of the cemeteries, and something that makes them, you know, significant. And I think the signs are really pretty cool looking. And they already did do one for the little cemetery that is on Purchase Street. They did that the last go around. So this is, she wants to do these for the other two.
These are lovely signs. They really are. And I think it's a great, I mean, Oak Grove Cemetery, I know that's, I mean, so much history there. And I mean, I think any kind of time you can kind of, I mean, I've gone through and discovered my own little gems, but it would be nice to have, you know, some information out there. And these signs are just really well done. And I know that the person who's submitting them has like the highest regard for historic preservation. So I definitely support this. Interested to see what everybody else thinks.
Yeah, she puts her blood, sweat, and tears into, you know, Oak Grove Cemetery. She really does.
Almost to a ridiculous point, that they didn't extend it further.
I don't know what that is.
I don't know. I can hear something.
If somebody was
Okay,
unmuted.
I tend to agree. I agree with you wholeheartedly on the Oak Grove Cemetery. But again, I would like to see this presented to us rather than coming forth like this. It doesn't allow us to, again, I'm being redundant tonight, but it doesn't allow us to ask a lot of maybe other questions that we would like to ask. But they did do a nice job. The signs are good. We understand, we're all familiar with the Oak Grove Cemetery and what it's gone through and the North Burial Ground. So I would agree to a letter of agreement for this. But I certainly would like to see these being presented to us in a more personal fashion. Have someone come down here and say, look, here's what we're doing. Give us a description, a brief description of what's going on, and let us ask other questions if they so arise. At this point, we're reading through this, and there might be some questions in the back of our heads that are not freely transmitted without having someone to ask the question.
In this case, this one's probably my fault. She did, I did have contact with Gail today, and she did say that she had a prior commitment. And she asked if she absolutely needed to be there, she would try and get out of the commitment. And I said I didn't think it was necessary because her project was really well done. And I thought that there was enough there that it could answer most of the questions that we had. She was ready to come before us at the last meeting, but we had, gotten bumped. So that made it a little difficult because I think people were expecting a meeting prior, but then we had obviously issues getting that meeting to happen. So now not everybody was able to make tonight's meeting.
I do have a question that has the park committee, park board been advised on this, and has it gone before the park board?
I don't know, but I know that she knows that in order for it to go before CPC.
It says here that there included our letters from the Historic Commission, Park Department, Fall River Preservation Society, and adjacent Church of the Holy Spirit. I'm not sure. Is this the wrong
No,
one?
that was for the last application, the church.
Oh, okay.
That was the last one. So I know that she knows that it has to go before the park board, and we don't have to make that determination.
Could we with our letter of agreement, just make note that it's contingent that they speak to the park board? Our letter of agreement is contingent on that?
We could, but do we really need, I mean, we're not the ones granting the CPC funds. We're just giving our approval as far as if we feel that it's a worthwhile historic project coming from our perspective. I don't think we need the park board's approval for us to send a letter saying, yes, we think it's a relevant project. If they're presenting to the CPC, then they certainly need the park board's approval for that. But we don't need the park board's approval to give a letter to them saying that we think it's historic and we support it. I don't see why we need that caveat in our letter. They need that for CPC funding, but I don't think we need to.
Well,
I mean, the park board certainly doesn't check with us when they're doing anything that's historic.
I know,
So,
but two wrongs don't make a right.
no, I understand what you're saying, but in this case, we're just saying that we think it's a good project and it's historic.
I guess all I'm suggesting is that they notify that our letter, we're not trying to supersede the park board. We're just saying, yeah, this is great. It looks wonderful, but you should get the approval of the park board to put these signs in the cemetery.
Right, but I think they know that because the CPC, I don't think would let them do it without park board approval. The reason, Bowen Cemetery, the one before that, I'm not even sure that was under the purview of the park board because I think that was a private little cemetery. But these are, so they would have to get their permission before they did anything.
Okay, just a
And again,
suggestion.
I don't think it's on us to say, we support it, but only with park board approval. I mean, either we support it or we don't. I don't think we need their approval to support it. They need the park board's approval for the CPC to support it.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, yeah, I do. And I'm just, I guess in retrospect, what I'm trying to say is this is going to go into the cemetery. And as a historic commission, I'm just suggesting that we not supersede or not jump on anything that the park board has jurisdiction on. We're agreeing that this is great. Let's do it as long as they get permission from the park board. That's all. If the park board says no, then our agreement is null and void. That's all. Is I guess what I'm trying to suggest. Make sense?
It does. I understand what you're saying. I'm not sure that I see it the same way. I mean, it's on the National Historic Register. That falls on us. If it's on the National Historic Register, that really falls on us. I think this is, again, one of those gray areas where even though it's under their purview, there is still some question as to whether the properties on the historic register are. Excuse me.
Okay,
Or
well,
not.
I'm just one member making a comment out of,
Yeah, no, I
out of a group.
understand. In this case, I think I'm going to disagree with you on putting that in the letter, but I'm certainly open to what everybody else has to say.
Sure. Okay, well, I relinquish the floor.
Okay, so let's get everybody else's thoughts here.
I'm fine with not putting anything in it about the park board, only because of what we've talked about in the past about the cemeteries. It's kind of a gray area. And since this is just a letter of support, but I do think that what the point Rick made should be held for the future, like for us to think about in the future. I think this is kind of a cut and dry kind of thing. I'm not sure we really need to put that in there, but I mean, and that's just my point of view.
Ruben?
I agree with Patty. I don't think we should have any verbiage in there regarding that. I agree. I like what she's put together. I would eventually like to see where she plans on putting them. But as of now, I'm 100% in agreement with proceeding with this.
Okay. Joyce, do you have anything to add to this?
You are unmuted.
No, I don't. I think that what Gail has produced is quite adequate.
Okay. So would someone like to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion to provide a letter of support for the CPC application for the historic markers for the cemeteries.
Okay, so I have a motion for the letter of support. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, so a motion and a second. So roll call vote. Patty,
Aye.
Rick,
The majority is one, so I'll say yes.
okay, Ruben,
Aye.
Joyce,
You are unmuted.
I agree. I support the letter.
okay, and I, Kristen, support the letter of support as well. So it is unanimous and we will send a letter. Okay, so moving on, the nominations, revisions to the Fall River Register of Significant Structures. So we've had three inquiries as far as wanting to be added to the register. The first one we have is Notre Dame Rectory, which I was actually surprised to see that this was not on the register already, but apparently it is not. So it is at 529 Eastern Avenue. And there is a letter here, and it is from Ken Fiola. I'm not sure why he's not here. He did say he was going to be at the meeting tonight. But anyway, I mean, I'm sure you all know the historical significance of Notre Dame Church and Notre Dame Rectory. And so he did provide us a little bit of information on the property. And I know I myself have never been inside, but outside it's a very, very beautiful architectural building. So they are looking, the owners of the property are looking for a letter to be included in the Fall River Register. And at some point they will be also looking for a letter of support because they will be applying for CPC funds. They want to save the property and they want to create housing in the property, which I'm really glad to see that somebody is not going to tear it down. And I'm worried about the property on the side of it at 555 Eastern Avenue, because somebody did purchase that. That property is also not on the register, but it's a different owner. It's not the people that bought this one, so I worry about that. I actually spent a lot of time in the other building, so I know how incredible that building is. So,
Okay, I agree, and I hear you, and it's a nice request, and it's a nice building. So I will make a motion that we get a letter of agreement on that property.
so to put it on the register?
See, yes,
Yeah, I second the motion for the letter of support for the register. When it comes to anything else, we'll want to hear more information, but I support
Oh,
it
no,
being
no,
on the register.
Absolutely. This is just, tonight is just to add the building to the Fall River Register. As
Yeah.
significant
I mean, it
structure.
absolutely should be. I mean, it absolutely should be.
Okay, I fully agree.
and I didn't realize that building to the left, that's where the brothers'
Yes,
housing was.
yes, that
Uh,
is where the brothers lived.
Yep, and I didn't realize that that was sold separately.
It was sold separately, and I'm
Oh.
not sure what the plan is with that, but I am extremely worried about that building because I absolutely love that building.
Hmm.
So, yeah, but at least we know that somebody is trying to save this property, and really, it's all we have left of what was Notre Dame Church, which was so iconic. And so anyway, so I have a motion and a second, so I'm gonna do a roll call vote. So Patty,
Aye.
Rick,
Yes,
Ruben,
Aye.
Joyce,
You are unmuted.
Yes, I agree.
okay, and I, Kristen, agree as well. So we will add it to the Fall River Register of Significant Structures. Now, 486 Bedford Street, I did not receive any updated information on that property. I actually tried to find information on it, and I really can't find much about the building. It's a small brick building. It's on the side of Merrow Manufacturing. I think it's where they have the meat things. It might be a VFW. I'm not sure. It's a little building.
I think that's the VFW.
And I'm not really sure what makes it historic, but I think this particular building is something maybe we should move to have another discussion on when we can get more information on the building, because even the person that contacted me had no information really on the building either. So I'm not quite sure what the plan is or why, you know,
Okay.
what they're looking to do with it, but
I'll make a motion to table till the next meeting.
I second that motion.
okay, so I have a motion and a second. So I will do a roll call. Patty,
Aye.
Rick,
Yes,
Ruben,
Aye.
Joyce.
You are unmuted.
I agree, Joyce.
Okay, and I agree as well, Kristen, to table it till the next meeting so that we can get more information on it. Okay, now the next property that we have to be considered for the Fall River Register of Significant Structures is a really hideous property at 45 Bigelow Street.
Have you seen the inside? It's terrible.
Oh, it's just so broken down and just, it's awful. So I will, we have someone here that's going to speak on that, so I will let him introduce himself and speak to us about the property.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so I'm Jason Bouchard-Naraki, and I live at 45 Bigelow Street. And I sent over the application over to Kristen, and she forwarded it all to you. So the house was built in 1914 for Hannah Kelly. And the architect was Maud Darling Parlin. This was actually under, it was under the guidance of her grandfather and father with their firm, Joseph Darling and Son. They constructed numerous buildings around the city. It's interesting because the house was built really at a time when Bigelow Street was mostly developed. Prior to 1914, most of the street was really it was not developed. It was all open farmland. Most of it was owned by John Brayton, whose house is now the site of Charlton Memorial Hospital. The land was sold in 1905 to Alfred Leeming, who also designed and built a number of houses across the city. So Hannah Kelly, she was a school teacher, worked in the elementary schools, and she had the house constructed for herself and her family. She was never married. She never had any children. So her family living here was her two elderly parents, her unmarried brother, her sister, and her sister's daughter. Her sister was Julia Murphy, and her sister's daughter, her niece, was Margaret Murphy, later Margaret Naraki. So it was this mecca for the Kelly family. Her parents were Irish immigrants. They settled here in Fall River in the 1850s. They married in 1868. And for a long time, the family lived over on Orange Street, which was it was part of the Sacred Heart Parish. And at one point when the neighborhood was changing, a lot of the Irish Catholics moved up Robeson. And so between 1914 and 16, there were about 6 or so houses under construction on Bigelow Street. It's not a very long street. So most of the houses were designed by Alfred Leeming, but they were all small bungalows. This house is a lot larger than the other houses, and primarily because she had such a large family living here. So upon completion, the house is finished with 6 bedrooms. So one of the other reasons why it was so large, her brother Cornelius Kelly stayed here as well. He did not live in the house, but he owned the Fall River Herald News. He merged the 3 newspapers in the 20s and created the Fall River Herald News. He was based out of New York. I believe he lived in Westchester County, but he did frequent Fall River and stayed here. What's also interesting is the fact that the houses remained in the family straight through. When Hannah died in 1962, the house was left to her niece, Margaret Naraki, and she and her husband, Stephen, lived right around the corner on Hanover. And so the house was offered to their son, Stephen J. Naraki, and his wife, Beverly, my in-laws. And so Stephen passed away in 2018. And so the house is still within the family. And at one point, the house was turned into a 2-family in 1948. My husband and I have actually just recently had the house converted back to a single family. We've removed the 2nd floor apartment, restored the 4 bedrooms upstairs. But the house itself is a very good example of a bungalow. In the application, I included 2 photos, one of which is an original photo from about 1915, and then one more recent. Very little has changed. It still retains the characteristics that make it a bungalow, with the knee braces on the roof, the wide overhang, which was a stylistic detail of a bungalow, having the very wide, low-slung roof. So yeah, that's basically a little bit about the house and the family.
Yeah, good.
Beautiful house.
Nice presentation. Thank
Yeah,
you.
that was
That's
awesome.
significant.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
It is a very charming house.
Mm-hmm.
It
Very-
really is, and when you go up the street, it just,
Yeah.
draws your eye right to it.
It's in good hands too.
I can't take any other credit. My late father-in-law took the greatest joy in this house. he grew up right around the corner, over on the corner of Prospect and Hanover, and he basically grew up here. Even when he still, I mean, he was very active with the school, the school department, and having seeing Hannah was a school teacher. One of his daughters was a school teacher. It was in the blood. Stephen was a long time principal over at Morton Junior High for years, and then he was over at Henry Lord. So there's a lot of I don't know, close-knit ties and traditions here in the house.
No, are you in the house right now? Is that the
I am.
background that we're seeing?
I am. I'm upstairs.
Wonderful. Well, I absolutely support adding this to the register, supporting adding it to the register for sure.
If that's a motion, I'll
It
second
is.
that.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote to add 45 Bigelow Street to the register. Patty,
Aye.
Rick,
Yes,
Ruben,
Aye.
Joyce.
You are unmuted.
I support that motion.
Okay, and I, Kristen, support that motion as well. So welcome to the club.
Thank you.
And thank you. The history of the house really was fascinating. I love when people present in such a thorough way like that, because it's so interesting to read. And the pictures that you had sent and everything, and that, the little tidbits were just great.
We've been trying to, my mother-in-law has found a whole trove of photos from about 1918 or so, and it shows all the people in the back of the house, which again, hasn't really changed. But I mean, and I mentioned Maud, the architect, she was the first female architect in the city, and which is pretty incredible to think about. She designed over 100 houses, and a lot of them are still unknown as to which ones she built. But it's pretty cool.
Well, thank you again.
see, Kristen, that's the type of presentations for all of these projects. That would be great.
I know. Well, we know Jason is he's very thorough, so.
Meticulous, yes, he is.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, and you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting,
Okay.
Jason.
No, we're
Obviously.
not.
Okay. Okay, moving on. Notice of intent to demolish structure, Pilgrim Mill, 847 Pleasant Street. Yay, still standing. Hopefully stays there forever. 45 Morgan Street, still standing. I went by there not long ago. Some of the windows are open and things like that, but it's still standing. I do not know what's going on there, but every day that I see it standing is a good day. 1 Weaver Street, historic smokestack. So they actually are building a building there now, and the smokestack is intact. They have actually done something to it looks like they shored it up. And from what I hear, their intention, although it is not, it has not been stated to us explicitly by them, as they never did respond to the letter that we sent. From what I hear, they are intending to keep the smokestack, so I hope that is true. As of yet, we never did get a response to the letter. I don't know what you all want to do about that, but it looks like because they're building all around it, it does not look like they're going to be taking it down, at least not anytime soon.
Yeah, at this time, it doesn't look like it. I mean, the site crew is pretty much done with their demolition,
Right.
and hopefully that means they're saving it.
Yeah. Well, that's what I've been unofficially told, so.
Yep. Keep our fingers crossed.
Anything?
Yeah.
Okay. Sagamore Mill, 140 8th Street. His time is up. And I know that they've taken out a lot of the windows, and parts of the building are just, starting to come down a little bit piecemeal, nothing fully structural, but windows are all out and there's things blowing out from the building. So he has, obviously, he has already told us of his intention to demolish and to build something there. I would hope that he will try and maintain some historic integrity to the building, but I don't know. Rick, have you heard anything from Dwight at all?
Well, I did meet with him.
Yeah.
You and I were going to, and we had
Yep.
difficulties getting together there, but I did meet with him.
Okay.
We reviewed his drawings. It's very difficult when you look at the lay of the land and you look at the way he's constructing these warehouse buildings. It's very difficult to try and save any of the old buildings. There's no way that you could keep a facade of one and brace it, and it's too expensive, too costly, and it would take away from his area, I guess, to put the existing buildings.
Right.
He did come up with a few structural designs that would blend more with the neighborhood. And he did say that he would try and match the color of the building with, that reddish brick tone that we had talked about at the meeting that we had with him.
Yeah.
And he was going to try and probably put some batten ridges in the windows to try then make them look more like a mill window setting than just a big piece of plate glass. And he seemed very, very amenable to those and was pointing them out. So
Good.
I say let's just stay with it and let's keep talking to him. And he did say when he got more concrete drawings that if we wanted to contact him, and he would definitely meet with us again.
That's great.
Or we could have him meet with us, either way. So he was very amenable to
Yeah.
everything. So
And-
sounded good.
Yeah, and I mean, when he came before us that time too, he was very, I thought it was very nice just hearing from him. He was willing to listen to us, and that's about the best we can ask, I mean, yeah.
The buildings are not super high structures, so
No.
they're only 2 floors high, 2 stories high,
Yeah.
and they're not enormously high interiors. So, you're probably looking at a 24, 26 foot roof line. So it's not an old standing mill by any means, but I don't think that it's going to be that disastrous when it gets put in place.
Right.
It looks good, and he's got a couple little green spots and their green places and things. So I think he's trying to develop something very nice. And he not only wants warehouse space, he wants to try and get office buildings in there, maybe medical, et cetera, et cetera. So he'll have to make it warm and cozy. So
Right.
I'm just hoping for the best. Yes.
Good. I mean, and that's good considering, I mean, Star is putting up a building. And we don't know anything really about what they're putting up. So,
Right.
it's obviously going to be a mixed. I mean, there's already some new buildings further down, actually next to Dwight's. I believe it's a Dwight that owns some of the other property there. That's the newer property. So you're going to have a mix in the area, and as long as it looks, sort of blendable, it can work.
Yeah.
It's sad. I mean, I'm always sad to see mills go, but it's nice that we have developers that are willing to listen to us and try and work with us a little bit. So good.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So 32 Renaud Street, it was a garage. They wanted to demo. It was not on, it was not on the register. It was just a garage. So I did send them a letter saying it was not on the register. Same thing with 48 Taylor Street was a property that was not on the register, really didn't look significant in any way. And 61 Hathaway Street was the same. None of the properties were on the register. I did send them letters saying that their properties were not on the register. So, anyway, old business. So, Rick did go before the CPC for the eligibility round for the application for the Form B's project that the Historical Commission is putting forth. So I figured Rick might want to just give us a quick little blurb about that and where it stands.
It was a very warm and congenial meeting with the CPA or CPC. And I made the presentation very brief and to the point. It seemed like it was welcomed actually by the members there. There was some favorable comments. And I did get a letter back from the CPC, stating that it was approved and that we had to submit the application by January the 15th. And at this point, it's my next major project this week. I'm going to be getting a hold of Al Lima, who is really the person who pulled this project together initially, and we're just assisting him at this point. So I'm going to get and speak with Al and get all of the forms filled out that are required by the CPC. And that has to be in and submitted in total by the 15th of January. And I have spoken to Sandy Dennis on this, so we're in good stead, and she has offered to help us if there's any of these questions or forms or areas that are of a concern or a little bit tricky for us to answer properly. She's volunteered to help us. So
Good.
all is good.
Did you by any chance reach out to somebody from the North End Neighborhood Association about a letter of support? Because since you're going to be doing Form Bs down in that neighborhood, it'd probably be a good idea.
Yeah, well, I thought, again, I just got the number of Al Lima's number.
Okay.
So I'm going to call him, and he's been doing a lot of this groundwork, and he knows who and what and where to go. So I thought I would get all of that done first, and then I'll try and fill in the blanks. Maybe
Yeah.
he's got a lot of this already taken care of. I don't know. I understand he's not feeling well.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah,
I'll,
he had emailed me a couple of weeks ago just to see how it went. So I said I would, you would be getting in touch with him. So he said,
Yeah.
okay.
good. And that will definitely be this week.
Sounds good. Okay, the merger of the Historical Commission and the Historic District Commission. As of right now, I don't have any updates, but at our last meeting, we did talk about how Corporation Counsel Alan Rumsey had gotten in touch with me. We talked extensively about doing that, the logistics of how that would be done and what should fall under the category in that and the ordinances and things. So he was going to be working on that, and I'm just waiting for him to get back to me. So I know the ball is rolling. So we are actually, at least making a little bit of progress.
Promising.
What's that?
Promising.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said before, I know that historic preservation is something that has always been very important to Alan. So I know that it's something that he's definitely supportive of, so he will work to get it done. It's just, unfortunately, we are not always a priority, and through no fault of his own or even the administration at this point, but because there are other things right now that really, you know, monetarily take priority or health-wise and that. So we're waiting patiently. Okay, so moving on, new business. So there is a wall at Oak Grove Cemetery. It's on the Locust Street side, where there's a little entrance across from the dog park, just a little bit further down. And the wall was damaged. It's all sort of collapsed on one side near the fence. So I did reach out to Chris Gallagher, and he said they are aware of it. And it was a car, an uninsured car that actually hit it. So they do have it on their radar right now. They don't have the money to do anything about it, but he said they, you know, more going toward the spring when the weather gets warmer, they are going to be working on repairing that wall. So I don't know if anybody has anything about that. I just wanted to put that out there in case anybody happened to see it. They do know about it. So
And if they could just extend that wall repair a little bit to remove some of the trees that are growing out of that whole section, that whole wall. I hope it's not out of order, but it is pertaining to the wall. So
yeah,
that whole wall is a disaster. It has
Right.
to be derooted.
yeah,
It's a word.
it is now. I mean, I honestly can't say if that will happen, but I know they at least want to fix the part that's all crushed and crumbling. So
Is there a suggestion box we could drop that off in?
You just tuck it into the wall.
Yeah.
It's Gallagher's email. Just
I
send
agree
it-
with
send
I
him an
agree
email.
with Rick though. I mean, before it gets any worse, you gotta
Yeah.
take care of those trees.
Well, it's something, you know what? Do we want to put that on the next agenda and we can talk about it and then send him a letter?
Yes, please.
Certainly do that. Okay. So for next agenda. Wall at Oak Grove.
I do know that 2 meetings ago, you know how we all attend these different boards? And I
Yep.
got the park board. So 2 meetings ago, they did approve someone examining the wall. I don't know if it was a landscape architect or structural engineer or what they were getting, but they were going to get someone to look at the wall and come up with some sort of an estimate as to repair cost.
That one on Locust Street?
The one, yes, the park. You know where the tennis court is? Ruggles Park Tennis Court.
No, we're
this is-
talking about.
I'm
we're
in the
talking
wrong
about-
area. I'm sorry.
We're talking
sorry.
about
Okay.
Oak Cemetery.
Yeah, no, I just switched my areas. Sorry about that. Yeah, Oak Grove Cemetery. No, that's, got it.
Okay, so we still want to discuss Oak Grove Cemetery and the Locust Street wall that's falling apart at the next
Yes.
meeting, yes?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
we should.
Okay. Now, what you're talking about, do you want to put that on the agenda for the next
No,
meeting?
Ruggles Park, yes.
Ruggles Park wall. Okay, so we can discuss that at the next meeting.
So sorry, I had a brain fog there, I guess.
Oh, that's
I
okay.
went from one bad wall to another.
I know. The sad thing is there's too many. It's all right. It's getting late, Rick. It's probably bedtime for a lot of people. So we'll give you a pass on that.
Oh, all right, thank you.
All right. Okay, so moving on, I had gotten a phone call, and actually it was a text, and then a phone call about the Watson School on Eastern Avenue, and that windows were being taken out and there was some demolition going on. So I immediately got on the phone with the building inspector to let him know what was going on, who apparently called Chris Gallagher, who called me to let me know what was going on before we panicked, because we really were in a panic on this. So at the Watson School on Eastern Avenue, they are replacing windows, but what happened was when they were taking the windows out to replace them, I guess the corbels, the stone things at the top of the window, because they were made of, I believe he said sandstone.
Sandstone, yes.
Yeah, they started to crack and fall apart. So what they did was, they took all the windows out, and then they took those down, and they had replacements made. They had casts made to look exactly like the ones that were taken down. And those are put back up now, and they are putting the windows back into the school. Granted, they're not the original windows. They are smaller than what was there, but they definitely look better than the temporary replacement windows that were there. But I believe, I mean, they need windows that open and close, and I guess, that's what was in their budget, but at least they did replace it, and it looks very nice, the new, fake.
Is there any chance that we get to see what those windows are going to look like? I noticed that it's not all repaired yet, so. Or the last time I went by there.
Some of the windows are in there already. If you go around, you can go in there, because he said you can go in there, just tell him who you are, and you can go around to the back of the building and see the ones. And I believe there's some already that have been replaced in the front of the building as well. It looks like they're doing a lot of the work at night, because I've driven by there a few times at night, and they're actually up there on the lifts, and they've got lights on the building, and they're working. So, I mean, you're not gonna like the window replacements, but they definitely look better than the temporary things that were there.
Yeah, I mentioned this in our last meeting, and I'm glad they spent the money to cast new ones. It's not cheap. I know that. The windows I'll leave for another day, but I'm happy that they are at least putting some effort into restoring the building.
Right. And the windows, the way that they did it, so the frames and the piece above it, it's darker, so it kind of at least blends in a little bit with the building, so it doesn't look quite, it's not garish or anything like that, so it's okay.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, when I was, that was my elementary school that I went to, and when I was there, it still had the original windows.
Yeah.
So it was.
I went there for first grade.
You went there what?
In first grade, and then I went to Notre Dame school, and I was in school when the church was burning down.
I was at Durfee when the church was burning down. I was walking home from school, and I remember I kept walking and watched it. Like,
oh yeah, it was scary. Yeah. I sprained my ankle on Watson School steps. I'll never forget.
Oh.
Yeah, I had to walk home with a sprained ankle.
Was it because you were too busy looking at the windows?
No, I was probably chasing somebody. Probably a boy.
Okay, so that is all I have. We have open discussion if there's anything that anybody wants to bring up.
I'm hungry.
You are unmuted.
I don't know if this is open discussion, but I really want to publicly thank Kristen for getting the documents on the agenda items to us in a timely manner. And secondly, for spending all this time on the technical aspects of getting this together, especially plugging me in because I don't have an up-to-date computer. And I managed to get through by using Fall River Government TV. So this is hats off to Kristen. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, but the technical end of it is all Alex. That has nothing to do with me. So my hat's off to Alex for pulling this off. I don't know how he manages to do all of these meetings and keep them going, but I mean, I'm just one little part of it, but he's the brains behind this whole Zoom operation. So thank you, Alex.
Okay. And I would just like to see Prospect Street put back on the agenda for the next meeting. And
What's Prospect Street?
on the corner of Prospect and High.
That's a different
Nope.
meeting, Rick. That's
Okay,
not the historical commission. That's the other meeting. That's the district.
okay, sorry about that. See, I told you I'm off.
I think it's
key.
time to adjourn.
I'm off key today.
I need to eat.
If that's it, I will entertain a motion.
I will give you a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Okay, so I have a motion to adjourn at 8:57 p.m. Do I have a second?
You have a
Second.
second.
Yep.
You got two seconds. That's a.
Let me do a roll call vote on this. So Patty,
Aye.
Rick,
Yes.
Ruben,
Aye.
Joyce, Joyce, are you there?
You are unmuted.
Okay, I got unmuted. I vote yes.
Okay, and I vote yes as well. So we are adjourned 8:57 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for attending the meeting, and the next date will be available at some point. We don't have one picked out yet. That's something that we're gonna have to work with Carry on to find an opening for us in January, and we'll get that out to the public. So
Okay.
Thank
everyone-
you,
Good night,
everybody.
everyone. Have a pleasant holiday.
Have a
You
good one.
too.
Good
Safe
night.
holiday.